Hey everyone, Sean and Dave here from the Saturday Morning Cartoons podcast. We cannot start this episode. We can absolutely not start this episode without thanking the following people who went to our patreon.com and support the show. So thank you,
Bill Dixon,
Jonathan Renteria Elye,
Jack Connolly,
Alex Kazanis,
Derek Haynes,
Melanie Harker,
Dr. Jason Woods,
Allison Keene,
Battle Mat Fitness,
Westbourne East Bred,
John Richard Helter II,
Dave Trumbore III.
damn it, again, and the one and only Sean Paul Ellis. Hey, listeners out there, if you want to get on this list of super cool people, we'd love it if you'd head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons, remember that's morning with a U, to see how you can support the podcast.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from Burbank, California on the Warner Brothers studio lot, I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, it's Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, bud?
David, I'm doing well, buddy. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I want to do good ideas, bad ideas with you all night whenever we get a chance. And
Yeah,
I
let's
just
do it.
sprung this on you now, so it's probably going to be real awkward. But that's one of my favorite segments from the show we're about to talk about tonight.
Oh, man. I feel like in addition to talking about this show, there's also another reason to kind of celebrate.
I mean, is there really?
Yeah,
What do
there
we got
is.
going on?
We've
Did
been
I forget
doing-
our anniversary again?
Well, this isn't really like an anniversary. This is just we've hit a milestone episode.
Have we now?
Yeah.
We've been doing this
You know,
for how
we-
many years?
Oh, did we start this in 2014?
It was pre-Trump presidency, so yeah, let's go with that.
I don't know why that's your measure for everything.
That's
but
my measure for everything and anything from now on.
God, yeah.
Back in the
we
good old days.
we started this show over 3 years ago. We are now at episode 200.
That's crazy.
200.
Are we syndicated yet?
Basically.
What? Where's our residuals? I feel like
That's how syndication works,
we've been
right? We just
3
do this long
times
enough.
syndicated, and we have yet to see a royalty check. And I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not 100% sure how this works. I thought when we got to 200 that this was sort of like the moment where, you know, we broke on through to the other side and suddenly fames, riches, podcast stuff all came down at this
Podcast,
point.
Monies.
Accolades.
Gummy medallions.
Every possible thing that you could imagine. But yeah, this is our 200th episode.
And the coolest part about this is not only do you and I get to celebrate 200th episode together with a really cool show that is actually coming back, which is kind of rare. Even in this like reboot heavy era of TV that we're living in. It's not just cool that we get to celebrate together. We get to celebrate it with people who have been listening to the show for a while, who love the particular show we're talking about tonight, and who wanted to be part of this special episode. So Sean, why don't you tell us what we have in store for our listeners out there on the 200th episode of SMC?
Oh man, guys, we are of course talking about Animaniacs. And so if you are not familiar with Animaniacs, let's get into it, because this is an American animated comedy television series created by Tom Ruegger. Animaniacs first aired on Fox Kids from 1993 to 1995, and new episodes later appeared on the WB from 95 to 98 as a part of the Kids WB afternoon programming block. The series had a total of 99 episodes and one film, Wacko's Wish. A reboot, as Dave had mentioned, for the series has been announced by Hulu and was announced earlier this year in January 2018, with 2 seasons to be produced in conjunction with Amblin Entertainment and Warner Brothers Animation. It's expected to start airing in 2020.
I'm super excited for that, but something you just said just triggered a memory of mine. When you said the WB and Kids WB, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear those words?
I hear Kids WB.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't even know. I mean, there's tons and tons of cartoons that were a part of that block.
What if I said the WB?
Oh, Michigan J. Frog.
Michigan J. Frog. And for kids
There
who
we
don't
go.
know what the hell we're talking about, look up just Kids WB Frog or something like that, and it'll pop up. if you don't know what we're talking about when we say the WB, this was like pre-CW. And I forget what it was before that, but like that channel has morphed a number of times. Also, look up UPN for fun. Why not?
Oh, that was a fun one. I
think that
UPN.
was the one that like UPN and WB like merged and became the proto CW.
Oh, wow.
I think they merged a bunch of stuff. None of this is important to what we're talking about tonight at all.
But look how far the CW has come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Wow, you said there was a lot of disdain.
Just look
buddy.
at it. I was missing the days of like Buffy and Angel.
Oh, fair enough.
But now we have CW superhero shows, so it's all good. And it has nothing to do with Animaniacs.
Oh my God. Animaniacs. Holy crap. If you're not familiar with this, and if this is your first time ever hearing about Animaniacs, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast.
If this podcast is your first exposure to Animaniacs, then A, we love you, and B, please just turn us off now and go watch a couple of episodes. But if you want to know what it's about, I mean, we'll try to sum it up here, but because it's a variety show, features a lot of like short skits, comedic skits, a big cast of characters, and a bunch of musical interstitials, it's kind of hard to sum up exactly what it's about without getting too much into the plot. The show itself had no set format, but most of the episodes were composed of mini episodes within each other, and then each of them starred a different set of characters. Some of them would be recurring, so you'd have like different... You had lead characters, who we'll talk about in a few minutes here. You also had supporting groups of characters who did cross over with the others, but most of the time they were doing their own skits. So if you watched any kind of variety show, whether it's animated or not, you probably have a good idea of this sort of setup for Animaniacs. Hallmarks and standouts of the series include its music, which is absolutely fantastic. The character catchphrases, which you can still hear in probably not classrooms, but in internet forums still today, and humor meant for adult audiences, which got them into some trouble over the years. But it's definitely much appreciated now, and we'll be talking about that. Hey, but let's talk about the music, though, first. You want to get into this theme song?
Let's do this theme song.
All right. What was interesting to me was watching the episodes that we watched tonight, and we decided to watch both the premiere and the finale, so the first and the 99th episode. What was interesting to me is I don't remember this intro being a part of the regular episodes. Maybe for the first one made sense to introduce you to what exactly was going on before you even got to the theme song, but I don't remember this intro that well.
Okay.
What about you?
So I guess, are you talking about the fact that there's this intro and then there's the actual theme song?
Yeah, so it's like a black and white intro with the narration and backstory, and that kind of leads you into the theme song.
Right, and this is what's so crazy is that watching these episodes, and I know that we've, in terms of time, I wish that we could have watched all 99 episodes,
That'd be cool.
which is why we've reached out to you, the listener, to ask you for your input, and we hope that you guys will continue to tell us about your favorite moments from Animaniacs and contribute, because trust me, over 99 episodes, the number of just like quick comedic bits that are thrown and smashed into this show, it's unreal that they managed to get so much content into this program. It's ridiculous. And so, I mean, I know that Dave and I will probably talk about tonight very specific things that we've identified with, and that you may have never even seen that in those 99 episodes because of just how fast-paced this is. But Dave is, of course, talking about the fact that they set up everything with this sort of black and white newsreel, where they explain the fact that, they were working on cartoons back in the Warner Brothers lot, and Warner Brothers Studios had been tasked with coming up with this new animation, and this led to the creation of Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, the Warner Brothers and Warner sister. And so they go through this process of realizing that, oh no, they've run amok. They're doing all these terrible things in the studio and causing chaos, and so they have since been locked away in the Warner Brothers water tower that's on the studio lot. And so, and it concludes with the idea of where they remained until they escaped. And so that sort of leads you into the actual theme song. But it's a great way to kind of give you all the information that you need to, because, I mean, these are non-traditional characters.
Right. They're brand new creations, right?
Right. I mean, they were created specifically for Animaniacs. They really don't exist anywhere else. But they kind of, harken back to some of these old, Looney Tunes style characters, even some of the characters that we would have seen like in Disney.
Yeah.
Sort of like the black and white characters with like a hint of color sometimes
Yeah.
that you would have seen. So there's a lot of like nods to older cartoons. And so to see these characters, you might be like, well, why do I care? Like, why do I want to invest time? Why is Warner Brothers putting 99 episodes, 5 seasons worth of material into a show? Why are they arranging orchestras to get together to put together like full-length orchestral music for certain episodes and do all of this if they don't really give a shit about it? And so it serves as a great primer and a lead-in, because I think I actually remember watching Animaniacs on the first
the premiere
day.
Yep.
Yeah, the premiere.
Yep.
And this was one of those things that you were just like, as a kid, you know what? I probably didn't need all this information. I probably would have just digested it and been totally fine with it. But the fact that they were just like, you know what? You might be a parent watching this with your kid.
Right.
Or you might be a kid later on down the road, I don't know, when you're 37, hosting a podcast with a buddy.
On your 200th podcast episode.
And you might be like, hey, I don't know, we want to talk about this a little more. I wish I had some context. Because, I don't know, 999 episodes that we've done in this show, I've bitched nothing about... I have bitched nonstop about, hey, for this cartoon, it'd be great if I had some fucking context.
What I love about this, though, is before we even get to the theme song, I've never seen anything like this in all the episodes that we've covered, right? It's kind of like a little story intro. Those usually kind of get folded into a theme song, but they're mostly just like exposition and narration, and it's just kind of like, okay, you just dumped a bunch of info on me. I don't really care, but I know at least the story that I'm getting into. This is more layered than that. It explains why this is retconned, because like we mentioned, they're new creations. But it's a false story to explain why, in quotes, we haven't seen these characters for 60, 70 years because they've been locked away in a tower because they were too insane. So it already sets up that kind of like zany reality where it's like, okay, these cartoon characters exist and they exist on the lot and they interact with people. And these characters were so insane, more insane than any other characters they created, that they had to be like sequestered away somewhere for 60, 70 years. Now it raises a whole bunch of like moral and ethical questions that you should probably be asking yourself. But the fact that they're like cartoon characters, but they're also chaotic. They don't really, they're not hemmed in by any specific rules or anything like that. Like it was a brilliant way to introduce these characters and say, oh no, they've been around for a while, but they were too crazy to let loose. And now they've escaped and we can't contain them again. Well, that's a brilliant way to introduce new characters, especially with the transition from black and white into a little bit of color with just the splashes of red, I think, on their noses. And then to transition into full color for the theme song itself. I thought it was a brilliant opening. I honestly thought it was only for that premiere, though. I didn't think they used it in multiple other episodes. Because why do that every single episode?
It's weird because to give you all this context and do it almost episode after episode.
Yeah,
now,
it chews up a lot of time.
I watched a bunch of episodes.
Okay.
And it's funny because there are some that I feel like they didn't do it.
Yeah, and I 100% believe that in broadcast they cut that for time for commercials too.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to think that, either it was something like, as I was kind of binging on a bunch of episodes, which all are available right now on Hulu.
Yeah, because that's where it's coming in 2020. Yeah.
Right, including Wacko's Wish.
Nice.
So you can watch all 100 episodes, 99 in a movie.
Sure. Just like Community.
Boy. If Dan Harmon is producing this in 2020, I'm going to be equally parts excited and frustrated. Yeah, tepid.
Listen, you heard it here first. Season 4 of Rick and Morty will be season 6 of Animaniacs.
Oh, god damn it.
Tweet it,
I have to wait
repeat
that fucking long?
Mm-hmm. Tweet and repeat.
That's dumb. So
turns out Rick created the Warner Brothers and sister back in 1935. Heard it here first.
No, but
Adam McDonald's.
With some session sauce.
There you go.
There we go. So, with having this over and over again, I wonder sometimes if it was actually the streaming service that I was watching it on, being Hulu, that was doing like that smart jump where they kind of time dash you like a minute to like a minute and a half into an episode to kind of move you through the intro quicker to the actual episode itself. Right. But then when I watched episode 99, it still had that entire black and white intro.
I was wondering
like,
if they just bookended the series with that, or just because episode 99 was very much just a celebration of everything that came before it. It was a look back, it was a catch up, it was a montage, it was original, but also honoring everything that came before it at the same time.
Was it original though?
Some of it was.
I got some beef with it.
We'll talk about it. About half of it was and half of it wasn't.
Yeah.
But I liked it, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But hey, how about that actual theme song?
So the actual theme song itself, I think, we've gone through recently an entire month of grading and really being meticulous about these theme songs. Yeah. I think the challenge that I have with this is that this fits every qualification of what I want for a good theme song.
Absolutely.
So
if you've been listening to us for 200 episodes now, you know exactly what we're talking about. So what are some of the things that you look for, like to check boxes on a theme song?
Of course.
Yeah.
So some of the major things that I look for is dedicated animation versus like animation that's been recycled from episodes. So in this, we get a mix. A majority of it, I want to say, is actual dedicated animation that they have for it. I think every once in a while, there's like a couple things that are in there for possibly supporting characters that they have. So you get this nice mix and blend of everything that's happening within their universe. And so you can really tell that they spent a lot of time and dedication with this. And I'm going to dog-ear this for a second. Okay. You know that they spent a lot of time and dedication for this because they have a bit gag at the end of every theme song that's super fun that they talk about. Right. So, but before we get to that, the music for this, unbelievable. I can't overstate enough how well music is utilized in a comedic, as well as also entertainment and educational.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Purpose
for a show that did not need to be educational at all.
It didn't. This show, I feel like somebody was like, you know what, guys. Let's see if we could do this. I felt like it was a writer room challenge to somebody else.
I think it was more like let's get that education stamp money, because if you're like 20% educational, you get like 20 grand an episode or something. I don't know.
Something like that. So, but I mean, like, they really did a great job with being able to add music as really sort of like a fourth character. If we're focusing on Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, I feel like it's as music in this is so much a supporting character that it's beautiful to hear. Lyrics for this. The lyrics in this are, as Dave has mentioned, chaotic.
But so much fun, like throughout the entire series.
It's nothing but fun. And the entire time, there are moments that are in this theme song where I had to go back and I had to look up and make sure. I was just like, am I positive that this is what they were saying? But then there were other moments that were in there where I immediately began singing along with it. Okay. Like I haven't watched this show in years. Yeah. And just to be able to pick up and snap back into it is a testament to just how
I sang along with
zany.
The two geographical songs. I didn't get it 100% right for sure. But the fact that I was just like, that's still in my brain and I can still kind of remember that. So that speaks to the educational aspect of it too.
And these things are just educational or slapstick regardless. These are just such earworms that the moment you hear them, you immediately recognize and know what it is.
What's one of the other categories that we always look for in a theme song but rarely get?
Ooh, man, introductions. I love a roll call.
100%.
Love to have a roll call.
This is like the best roll call in the history of the world.
and as Dave has mentioned, this is a variety show. Yeah. And so, there are the supporting cast that we will talk about tonight that inevitably somebody's going to tweet at us and just be like, well, you didn't talk about this one character.
We're not going to get to all 45 characters. Sorry.
There's so many characters.
But at the same time, if you have favorites, let us know, because we'll probably miss some of them, because I'm not just going to read a wiki page and be like, remember? Right. But we love them just as much. Maybe. Like there were some that they popped up and I had to look them up because the name itself didn't jog my memory. But as soon as I saw that image, I was just like, oh yeah, I remember this, like Chicken Boo. Like I didn't remember a 6-foot tall chicken in a business suit walking around. People treated it as human, but I was just like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, okay, 100%.
I watched a Chicken Boo episode tonight, and then I had to explain Chicken Boo to my fiance, friend of the show, Melanie Harker, and she really gave me a look that was complete disapproval, but also, how do you remember this? And I honestly, it just because it was one of those gags that just stayed with me for so long, because it was so bizarre. But we get that wide cast of characters included as a roll call in this theme song,
and
it's
included in
just-
such a way that it's not just like, yeah, like you're probably going to say before I jumped on you, like it's
Yeah.
not just like, here's a list of everybody. It's like they work them in the pairings that they're going to show up in
Yep.
in the context of how they're going to show up, and within the rhyme scheme of the lyrics as well too. It's really well done.
Yeah, none of this is shoehorned in any way. All of this feels like it's natural, it's organic, it's super fun. And then to close and pick up my dog ear at the very end, they get to the very end and they always have, kind of like how within The Simpsons, Bart is always potentially writing something new and different on the chalkboard
Or like a couch
inside
gag.
of Springfield. Right. And so these couch gags, and so every single time they have something that they have that's at the very end, and it's super fun because they do a cutaway.
Yeah.
You know, and you could tell that this is something that they were just like, we got this idea, guys. Let's animate this. Let's put this in there. It's gonna be fun, right? It's gonna be. It'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be good.
And even if
you
not, we're only doing it once, so it's fine.
and it's always rhymes with like a Y.
It's usually Aney, something Aney.
And so it's
'Cause
always
it's like totally insane-y.
Pinky and the Brainy,
Mhm.
you know, and so they do a really good job of kind of utilizing some of the cast of characters that they have and bringing them into that kind of couch gag at the end. But also then there's really weird ones that they have. That
What,
just, like,
do you remember
make
some
almost-
of them? Because I thought there was one that I thought there was one episode, and I could be, maybe I was on drugs, who knows, maybe I had a fever when I was like 12. But I could have sworn there was one where they just like cycled over and over, and they kept doing the gags.
Oh, really?
Like it was totally insane-y, Pinky and the Brainy, something else rainy, and it just like kept going, and they did like 6 of them, but I could be wrong. Maybe that was like a mix or something that I watched, but
Well, I mean, even for the first one, they do here's the show's namey. There was one that I watched when I watched episode 3 where Dot just goes, "Come back, Shaney."
from the Western?
I guess, yeah.
From Shane?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Rain and Spaney, Cockamamie, How Urbaney, Citizen Caney, Andromeda Strainy.
That had to be a fun writer's room session, just spitting those out. Just some poor intern making a list of all of them.
The one that I always remember, which for some reason is so dumb but has always stuck with me ever since watching this, is Chicken Chow Maney.
Chicken Chow Mania is funny.
I don't know why. There's Penny Laney, No Pain, No Gainy. They have one where Yakko just goes,
Yeah,
and that's it.
They have a ton of fun stuff for that, and I love it because it changes it. Like every time, it gives you a reason to watch the theme song too, because you can
Right.
sing along to the theme song and it's fine. But you get to that point, you're like, what are they gonna say? And most of the time, it was just like one of the standard ones. But every once in a while, they throw a new one in there.
Like the one that they have where they're just like Fraser Craney. Shout out to Fraser Crane.
Shout out.
Dr. Fraser Crane.
Of course, as all kids love Fraser Crane at this time.
I watched so much Frasier during this time too. It was dumb. I should not have been watching all of these cartoons at once.
Good old Frasier.
Oh, man.
Frasier and Animaniacs.
But yeah,
I
mean,
can't.
this-
I can't say enough good things about it. It's like it should be playing in your head as we're talking, and you should also pause us and go listen to it if you really need to.
I will say this. For episode 100,
Yeah. You mean like
99 and 100,
Okay.
we talked about, for Saturday morning cartoons,
okay.
we talked about the cartoons, Batman, the animated series.
Correct.
And I think that Batman the animated series, in terms of tone and in terms of score, really sets the mood. In terms of action, really does an amazing job of just preparing you for what you're about to watch. Obviously, watching this, I love, and I have a ton of these check boxes that I look for in a theme song. The Animaniacs theme song is as close to perfect as I think I've ever gotten in terms of being able to actually check off all of these things. And I'll say for a comedic cartoon.
Sure.
And I say that to distinguish that from Batman TAS,
Yeah.
because obviously that's a little bit more of an action-oriented, serious
From
cartoon.
Skeleton Warriors, things that are obviously top of the charts.
Yeah, right.
Is there, honestly though, for this song, is there anything in the intro? Is there anything about it that keeps it from being perfect?
No, I mean this to me
It's a perfect theme
is
song.
is a perfect theme
It's a
song
perfect
for
theme
me.
song. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really the reason I wanted to pick this for episode 200, is that to be able to go back and revisit all the music, especially the theme song in this show, as well as also this Hulu reboot that they're gonna do. I mean, we got to flash forward 2 years real quick.
Look, it's crazy though, right? Because we've talked about some musical variety shows on this podcast before, and none of them have been good.
Grooving Ghoulies.
They're so bad.
They're awful.
so bad. It's like it's
God,
hard
they
enough
suck.
to write a cartoon. It's hard enough to animate a cartoon. It's hard enough to write good comedy. It's hard enough to write good musical interludes and good songs. It's nearly impossible to do all of those things together and do well at all of the above. But Animaniacs is like the one thing that does it. It really is like our generation's Looney Tunes. It's like as I was watching it again today, I was just like, this is just Looney Tunes, man. Like this is just modern Looney Tunes. And it's fantastic. It takes like 50 years in between each version of it. But the fact that like this is our Looney Tunes and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. You can still go back and watch any episode today and it'll be just as fun. The references, they're either dated because the Warner Brothers themselves somehow kept up with pop culture in the silo for 50 years, but it doesn't matter because they were old references when we were in the 90s, so they're still going to be old references today. It doesn't change the humor at all. And there's not that many sort of like meta commentaries on contemporary stuff, with the exception of like Bill Clinton plays the sax, which I always love that in the intro. It's one of my favorite things.
It's such a great. I love the fact that like right out of the gate you get that we're Animaniacs. Dot is cute and Yakko yaks. Wacko packs away the snacks. Which trust me, when I was watching this, I was probably eating an entire sleeve of Chips Ahoy cookies.
100%. Or
and I was
Pringles
like, oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like shout out to Bobby Anthem on the
Hell
Pringles.
yeah! Can't wait
So,
to sponsor us.
But then it just goes for snacks. It just goes while Bill Clinton plays the sax. Like, there's so much crazy crap that's in here.
But what's so great about that part
so
though too is as soon as they
enjoyable.
say that, they also animate him playing the sax, and then a cool little sax riff comes in and joins them for the next part of the song. It's like there's so
It's
many
so
different
good.
like creative minds that were just like, what if we just add this little tweak or just like change this little joke here or there to just heighten it. Such a good comedic team, fantastic voice cast that probably was, part of that that effort as well. Really can't say enough, and that's just talking about the theme song. You want to get into the actual animation itself?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
I don't even know really what to say about this because it's such it's its own thing, because all of these characters, with the exception of some cameos that pop up here and there like Porky Pig or whatever, they're all drawn in that Warner Brothers style, but they're all brand new, fresh creations. So just like some of the musical interludes in other cartoons that we've watched haven't worked, there are some times where you try to create a variety, a huge cast of characters, and some of those designs they just do not work.
Yeah.
But these guys, I don't know how they made an entire new cavalcade of like Warner Brothers style cartoons that weren't direct ripoffs from ones that came before and didn't look out of place. Like everything looked like it had been there for decades. Some of them looked a little worn. You looked at Slappy Squirrel versus her nephew, and you get a little more. She's got a little edge to her. She's got a little crinkle to her. She's got a little stoop in her walk. Every character has their own kind of their own style, their own personality to it. And there were so many different ones, which we'll talk about in a few minutes here. So many different ones, but they all work together and they could all fit in that same universe. I absolutely love the design of these things. Do you want to talk about the design of the main three real quick? Because they're interesting.
Sure.
They're weird looking characters. They look like kind of like ink blots.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
They look like Rorschach tests kind of with pants.
Yeah.
Or a hat or a dress. I'm going to take one step back first before addressing Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, and just say that this is in that period of time in the early 90s when Steven Spielberg was producing a whole bunch of cartoons. And so this is actually the second Steven Spielberg produced cartoon, with Tiny Toon Adventures being the first, which if you watched anything about Tiny Toon Adventures, I mean, it's all of your favorite Warner Brothers cartoons. Yeah. It's maybe their children. I don't know. I think it was supposed to be their.
I think it was supposed to be their children. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be their kids.
Or second generation or whatever. But I mean, they're derivative by design. They're supposed to look like those characters and embody those characters.
And again, this is one of those. This is a cartoon that has an unbelievably large cast, is variety show based, and plays a lot with music and a bunch of interstitials. Yeah. And so a lot of the stuff that they have for the design actually really comes forward. Like if you think about Buster Bunny, he has a red shirt and he's a blue rabbit. the blue that's in his actual rabbit is the same color as Wacko's shirt, and the red is the same color as Wacko's hat.
Sure.
Like even Babs Bunny, like the pink that she has is the same color as like Dot's. So like you could begin to see where they made some of these artistic jumps, you know, some of the artistic inspiration that had, because then, and I mentioned this just because we've talked about some of these before, and we will talk about some again tonight. You know, we went from Tiny Toons to Animaniacs to Pinky and the Brain to Freakazoid, which we've talked about on the show,
Right.
to then Toonsylvania,
which
and
we haven't gotten into.
We haven't gotten into yet. And so we have all of these things across, you know, a majority of the 90s that Steven Spielberg was working on. And it's interesting because, you know, you can tell, I guess, maybe just how much love he had for old Warner Brothers cartoons. Probably also just that sweet, sweet WB Cash they were printing, those WB Cash bucks, you know, that they were just
mining away
on it.
Yep.
Right. And so, but, you know, for whatever the reason, you can definitely see that whoever was actually working on it at the end of the day, that there was a lot of love and attention and detail that was put into these characters. And so when you look at Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, Yakko kind of, I don't know, he's almost wearing like what looks like hobo vagrant pants.
Yeah, he's just wearing pants with kind of like a belt, just like brown pants. Yeah. That's it.
They're too big.
Yep.
The belt's too big as well.
No
Nothing
shirt.
fits him.
No shoes.
No shirt.
No service.
Nothing.
But
he also has those very, very classic, like Warner Brothers style. Like they've got big gloves, which are actually like they always. I know that they are in Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons. For some reason, I always think of them as being like a Disney, like
I think
having
it's
their origins in Disney.
Yeah, it's
right.
just because of Mickey.
And
but I mean, everybody has them because no animator wants to draw hands over and over and over and over again. Just like draw big clunky gloves that are just like,
you know,
4 quick swoops.
Bugs had gloves like that as well. I mean, you know, everybody had those because it was so much easier for them to just draw rounded fingers than just be like, what is a bunny hand?
Yeah, and also a lot less terrifying than just like I know you said bugs as in bunny, but I'm thinking bugs as in like crickets and grasshoppers and stuff. Rather than having like they still had gloves too half the time, because rather than having like a pincher or a claw come at your kid, just be like, nah, just put a glove on it. It's fine.
Just, I mean, Jiminy Cricket had fucking gloves on.
Yeah, all these damn crickets had gloves. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Evolution took a
damn
turn.
Insect jumping around, causing problems.
How else are you gonna play a fiddle?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Just next time you hear a cricket, go out and catch them. Look for the gloves.
You know, we have Wacko, who just has a backward baseball cap. He's got kind of like a big oversized sweatshirt,
which covers up his cartoon genitals, which is nice.
I guess. You know, and just and Dot is obviously
Topless.
the cute one, and she is, oh boy, she just has really simple flower as well as also pink dress. And so I love the idea that, you know, they didn't spend a lot of time really working and focusing on the accessories that are in these characters. I think a lot of the personality and to me, the memories that I have about the animation are related specifically to the actual voices, as well as just also the slapstick nature of what they were doing. These characters are so fluid.
And they're moving around so much, and it's so chaotic that like minimal design here is what you want. So it's just like not really any shading, because everything's just black because they're like black colored skin. And then the white gloves and whatever, but it's just like very minimal design because there's a lot of moving parts going on here.
And like to Dave's point about the chaotic nature for this, like there are moments like where they will take off their head. There are moments where they will bounce on their butts all over the place.
Turn into plants, whatever.
They will like dismember one another. There will be moments where I remember there was one where like Dot cranks Wacko's tail and it turns into like a
like one of those accordion box things.
Exactly. That she like runs up then his like part of his spine. Like there's so much crazy stuff in terms of what they do with their bodies in this, which that sounds, you know, in retrospect, that's a weird thing to say.
Nope,
we just went after dark.
Tell me more about their bodies.
Oh my God. It's crazy to see for something of this Warner Brother nature that they're able to be so flexible with this design and have it be so minimalistic. You son of a bitch. Dave's just winking at me and raising his eyebrows the whole fucking time. It's great to see that they had so much fun in the chaos of the simplicity of these characters.
Yeah, they weren't stuck in like this is a human body, or this is something that is restricted to like physical space or physical laws. They're cartoons. They're chaos creatures, so they can do anything. And like Sean was saying, I'm giving them a hard time, but like they manipulated them in all kinds of different ways, and they could turn them into all kinds of different things.
Tell me about how they were
They
manipulated,
were
Dave.
digitally manipulated.
Oh boy, I'm gross myself out.
Yeah. So
Shit.
they had a lot of fun with it, is what I'm trying to say. And, all for comedic effect. And it was great. I mean, it's just, it's one of the, there were no limits. Like, imagination was just running wild in this show. And the funniest thing is that, like, that's the Warners. They're chaotic. There are other characters who are kind of restricted more. So, like, we'll talk about Pinky and the Brain a little bit. Brain is very much like a mouse of science, and he's very practical. And when he gets injured by, like, Pinky, like, dropping a hammer on him or whatever, like, he still gets injured in, like, a cartoonish kind of way. But because that doesn't, like, fit with his practical plan, he gets very upset about it. So it's like the farthest you could go from the Warners at all, because he's very upset. Right. Or you'll have the fall guys, like the guards, different dogs that run around and try to eat various characters. Like, everybody gets the brunt of wacky Looney Tunes style violence in this show, but it works, and it works better than a lot of the other shows. We've watched a lot of slapsticky shows that are just painful to watch.
Yikes.
Shows with music, painful. Shows with slapstick that doesn't work, super painful. Animaniacs, somehow, I don't know what combination or what potion they had, but it just works pretty much every time. Anything else for animation style? There's nothing else that's really jumping out at me. They did get in some trouble for being a little too sexy here or there. Ooh. If you guys remember Minerva Mink, she's a little sexed up for the kids out there. So I think some of the censors pulled that back a little bit.
We're jumping into characters right now, Dave. Why don't you
right
tee this off with Minerva Mink?
I honestly don't remember too much about her except that aspect of it. But what was interesting was she was always kind of palled around with this character by the name of Wilfred Wolf, who was super nerdy. Think like Steve Urkel, but if he was a wolf. And then what was funny about that is he was obviously like smitten with her. She was drawn very sexily, very like evocative and suggestive.
Just like our super thick squirrel we had earlier.
Oh, thick
Disney
squirrel.
Month. Thick squirrel.
But Wilfred had an interesting aspect of his character where, I guess once a month or whatever, he was actually a werewolf. So when he turned, he didn't turn into a human. He turned into like this like roided out Chippendales looking super hot wolf dude. So when that happened and Minerva finds out about it, she's smitten and like goes completely bonkers. One of the funniest things about this show is that it's a little sexist because they do portray some of the female characters as very like curvaceous and very kind of like Jessica Rabbit or Betty Boop or whatever, very accented and stylized female characters. And then they have the male characters do the kind of like thumping heartbeat and like bug-eyed like wolf howls and wolf whistles and all that kind of stuff. And
not even howls. Yeah. They, at one point they
turn into like a steam whistle or whatever.
Well, no, they have Yakko and Wacko actually turn into like a dog or a wolf-looking creature.
Yeah. Or they turn into a steam whistle, where they're just banging on bongos and making a bunch of noise. And like for kids, it's just like very funny. As an adult, you're kind of like, okay. But what's at least, I'll give this to their credit. They at least did extend that to the other side of the gender divide. When like a quote unquote hot male character would come on screen, sometimes Dot would have that same effect. There was like a male nurse on a couple of occasions, or a different male character who would come in. And the hello nurse that we usually get from Wacko and Yakko, Dot got a chance to do that too. So I thought that was super fun. Minerva is another one of those characters who kind of reacts the same way. It's just kind of like head over heels, completely bonkers and goofy. So it wasn't quite even, but at least they split that sexist humor up a little bit. So it's better than most cartoons. Looking at you, Ace McCloud.
Oh man, it's really weird because there was one episode where I forgot how much fun and how just sort of smart this fucking show can be sometimes. But they have this moment where they are interacting with Albert Einstein, right. and Dot definitely has like her own gender specific hello nurse moment with him, where she's kind of like turned on with him. But then when she goes back and looks at other characters like Dr. Scratchansniff as her brothers, and as she's watching her brothers have these like moments or these thought bubbles where they are thinking about horseback riding with Hello Nurse,
Driving
or
a convertible.
or
with
driving
them,
in yeah, exactly. She has this moment where she's in a boat with Dr. Scratchansniff, and that is her thought bubble,
Yeah.
and she just shrugs it off and goes, "Oh no." Like,
But then it's interesting because later in the series, or maybe even in the episode, I can't remember now, but she's just like, I never knew your eyes were so blue to Dr. Otto.
yeah.
So who knows what Dot's about? Maybe she's coming around Dr. Otto.
There is so much stuff that's just crammed into almost every episode that unless you are constantly binging and watching this on repeat, like you inevitably are going to miss certain aspects of this show. It is so jam-packed.
And I mean, it's even just jam-packed with characters. So we've already talked about Yakko, Wakko, and Dot quite a bit, but is there anything that you want to say specifically about any one of them before we move on to maybe some of the side characters?
Nothing other than the fact that Yakko is voiced by Robert Paulson.
Mm-hmm.
We have Wakko, who is Jess Harnell, and we have Dot, who is Tress MacNeille. Just unbelievable voice cast that we have, and they voice other characters as well as also. Guess what? We've got a lot of notable voice cast that's in here, especially Billy West and fucking Frank Welker.
He's in everything.
Frank Welker is almost every single character in this show.
He's
like
most
every
of the
supporting
characters that
character.
have like a weird, like if there's a dog that you need to bark at some point, like that'll be Frank Welker. Yeah, which is
yeah,
great.
it's insane. I mean, we have so many characters that are on here. So we have additional major supporting characters.
Well, let me ask real quick: Wakko, Yakko, and Dot. So everybody gets kind of like their own
Okay.
song, right? They all get to sing kind of together, but I think each of them gets their own individual song too. Because Yakko has got his countries of the world.
Right.
Wakko has his United States and their capitals.
Right.
I can't remember if Dot got anything though.
I'm trying to remember if Dot, because I think Yakko also had one about the universe.
He, did he though? Because there's not that much you can really say, unless it was just like the solar system.
Just planets.
Yeah, he's like it's 5 seconds that he's done. I think he had a second.
He did have a planet song.
He had a planet song.
Yeah, I'm struggling to remember if Dot actually ever had that opportunity to do some type of song. And I know that she has sung in other songs,
Right.
but I'm wondering about like a dedicated educational song that she would have sung during the show.
I don't know. If you guys can think of one, let us know, or do the Googles, and we will find out as well. But yeah, I can't remember. But aside from the 3 main characters, now they didn't feature into all 20, 25 minutes of every single episode because these, again, it was a variety show. So these were broken up into other segments. Who are the first characters that come to mind when you think about one of these other segments that popped up in the course of Animaniacs?
Oh man, I mean it's definitely Pinky and the Brain.
Sure.
You know,
and they got their own series, right? It was their own spin-off series after that.
Right. They were like the third before Freakazoid,
Yeah.
I think, because I feel like for all of these, there's been some blending in terms of what they've had. I know that in Animaniacs they had a crossover where at one point Tiny Toons was involved,
Okay.
and so there've been so many crossovers. It wouldn't blow my mind if for some reason you saw Yakko, Wakko, and Dot in the back of a Freakazoid episode.
Oh, sure.
Just
yeah. That would
again,
actually fit in perfectly with that show.
think about how absolutely chaotic Freakazoid was
Right.
in relation to this show, and they all move and blend together so perfectly for this world. But yeah,
So Pinky
those
and the
are
Brain come to mind.
Pinky the Brain. I want to say the Good Feathers.
Yeah, buddy, those are some of my favorites.
The Good Feathers, and then it's Chicken Boo. It's
Really,
fucking,
Chicken Boo.
It's fucking Chicken Boo.
Really?
Yeah, and I can explain some more about that. I just Chicken Boo was such a dumb sight gag that every time they did it, but you know what? Like I've come to realize now as an adult and having performed and written and have done live comedy that it did such a great job of just setting up one dumb pattern of behavior, and then you could insert anything in there, and they were always dumb, but they hit that rule of comedy 3, you know, where inevitably what would happen. And I watched.
Yeah, tell me about Chicken Boo because I can't remember, and all I think I can remember is it was a chicken in a suit.
No,
that wasn't even it.
It's he's an actual chicken.
Yeah,
and he's wearing human clothes.
Yeah, a chicken in a suit.
Oh, okay. I sorry. I thought for some reason you were just like it's chicken and he's wearing a chicken suit.
Oh no,
it's like
no. No, I'm not Inception chickening this thing.
But I will never forget the theme and intro music that he has, especially just that final line where it just goes, "You're not a man, you're a chicken, boo." And what the fuck is a chicken, boo?
I do remember that.
I still don't get it, but it still resonates in my brain to this day. And so the one episode that I watched tonight was Davy Omelette.
Okay.
Who Davy Omelette is the Davy Crockett version of Chicken Boo, where he's sort of in that frontier's time garb,
right?
And there's a Conestoga wagon, and somebody's like, "Oh, is that Davy Omelette?" Somebody's like, I heard he wrestled a bear. Like, I heard he did this like second amazing feat of behavior and strength." And then a third person comes out and just goes, I heard he was just a big chicken.
Oh,
and people are like, what? And then they'd fight over it.
Right.
Inevitably, something would happen where it would be revealed that he was a chicken, and he'd scurry off, clucking and bucking the entire time. Yeah. And it would just close out, you wear a disguise to look like human guys, but you're not a man, you're a chicken, boo. I loved it. I loved every moment. Because it was really like a 2 to 2.5 minute, super short, in and out, same pattern of behavior, rule of comedy 3 every time. And you knew the second that it came on, you're like, I know exactly how this is going to happen, but it's still dumb and I'm going to giggle about it.
I think that kind of paved the way towards what would come in the next 10 years or so. The short, like hyper short format where we've moved into like, first it was like 12, 15 minute segments of a 30-minute cartoon, and then it was like 5 or 6 minute segments of a 15-minute episode, and then you could get both of those and it would count as a double episode or whatever. Like, that was one of those like proto variety sketch things, but just for animation. Is one of the earlier ones to do that, and I think they did a really good job at it, because for the variety shows, kids didn't have to maintain concentration for all 20 minutes. You just had to last long enough between commercials, and you can move on to the next thing. So for something like Chicken Boo, you just sat there for 90 seconds, and you got your bit, and you moved on to the next thing. For me, I loved Good Feathers. Growing up a stone's throw from, northern Jersey, from Newark, and from New York City. I mean, it was great. That was fantastic. But I also loved Good Idea, Bad Idea. Absolutely love those things, because I always was just kind of like sitting there and just waiting for the joke to land, because that's such a good setup that you know that punchline is coming, and that Mr. Skullhead's about to get wrecked. You just don't know how it's gonna happen.
You talk about Mr. Corey Skullhead?
Mr. Corey Skullhead.
He always reminded me of, and I don't know if you watched this, but it was an SNL interstitial sketch that they had that was in the 80s, but Mr. Bill.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Mr. Bill was one of the early claymation things too. Yeah.
Early, I feel like sometimes he was really chuckamation, because they were just throwing I loved Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill was great. Go look that one up too as well. Some of the other ones we had though that don't look. There's some that don't jump out as much to me. Flavio and Morita were 2 like Spanish hippos. They feature in some of the episodes that we saw, but I don't remember any like side stories for them. Apparently there was a kid named Colin who would always talk about his friend Randy Beeman, and he always had these like stories about Randy Beeman.
It was like one of those things where it was always a one solid still shot of like a house, and Colin would come out and
exactly.
Yeah, and he'd just be like, my friend Randy Beeman, and then you get sort of like
one time my friend Randy Beeman.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you'd be like holding an ice cream cone and it would like fall off, and he would just like run away or whatever.
You get this third-hand account of his friend and like what had happened. I remember every once in a while, Katie Kaboom.
That's one I didn't remember either. I'm like reading the description now, but
it was like a teenage girl, and like her parents would activate or say something that would piss her off, and so she'd just kind of go through this moment where she'd explode, and it was a literal explosion. Like her parents would clear the room and hit the deck kind of thing. I think I remember Katie Kaboom because there was a crossover where I think that she was dating Chicken Boo.
Yeah, just read.
He was in like
Chicken Boo crossover.
Okay.
Yep.
He was wearing like a Letterman's jacket, and he was like somebody in a football team, and so they were really excited about that. And so it was I don't know, maybe it was something that talked about because she was a teenage girl, maybe it was sort of an allusion to puberty and kind of coming of age,
Sure.
or tempers that they had during that time. I think it was also nice because I feel like for a lot of female characters that we had in this show, they are kind of drawn in that curvaceous manner and sexualized. I think that they did a good job of adding in a lot of additional female characters that did not fall into that category.
Gotcha.
That actually, whether they were small bit characters like Katie Kaboom, or even Slappy Squirrel.
And Slappy and her nephew, I think, or grandson, maybe they at least
Skip.
they at least had kind of like a regular supporting role. Like they would show up in their own kind of like stories at least. Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll say the one set of characters that when I watched it, I was kind of like, I'm pained by this because I know who the voice actor and actress are, Frank Welker and Nancy Cartwright for Buttons and Mindy.
I was never a big fan.
And I was never a big fan myself.
No.
I went back and I watched a couple episodes of it, and it's again, this show does such a great job in terms of being able to set up that consistent pattern of behavior for these characters that when something happens, you know the outcome. Like Buttons is a dog who's protecting Mindy.
Right.
Mindy is a very young girl. She gets into some potential. She walks into a construction
It's like
site.
Baby's
Day Out.
Exactly.
God damn it. Yep. And so the entire time, they're just trying to. Buttons as the dog is trying to protect her and make sure that she's going to come out of this unscathed.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to see it. Because also Buttons has like what seems to be like an anxiety problem as well.
Really
he's very
does.
scared and very nervous. So he's like a Courage the Cowardly Dog in that sense.
Just not
so
with that weird humor, which was kind of what made Courage so
yeah,
interesting.
exactly.
This
Or
I
just,
do
like,
I do
the
like.
hole in the tooth.
Yeah, that. I do like when Buttons will occasionally quit. He'll just like give the family a sign that just says "I quit." He's like, "I'm done with this. I'm tired of it." But yeah, that wasn't one of my favorites. Rita and Runt wasn't one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I actually had forgotten about this little guy, but he's so stinking cute, and I'm glad that I came across it. But the flame, there's this little flame at the top of a candle that has like a little face. It looks like something designed in like a lab by Pixar.
It looks like a Fantasia thing.
It does, because it's super cute, and he's got this little childlike voice. And I think he's only used in like the historical stories, the educational stories, or like things about like fire safety randomly. So it's like there's the thing with like Thomas Jefferson and
Right.
All the signers of the Declaration of Independence and all that stuff. And he is kind of narrating the way through this thing. And that's even a design switch, right? So they're animating the signers in a way that's like, they're more realistic looking. They're still cartoonish, but they look more realistic. But you've got this little tiny flame who's just narrating it for the kids. And it was such a shift of style and tone, but it was still super cute. And it's a neat thing to go back and watch now. It's like, it's really well done. And just so out of place with everything else that's in this show. But it's a nice kind of way to take a breath. I also love the fact that Tom Bodett narrated the Good Idea, Bad Ideas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Tom Bodett will
leave the light on
for you.
Yep.
Look that up, kids. That doesn't make me feel bad and old at all.
No, I also like the fact that we had an off-screen narrator who was Jim Cummings every once in a while.
Yeah.
Who did sort of like he did like a Nighty Night tune, because I rewatched that.
It was good.
It's just
There's a lot of gags in there too.
Yeah, it's just because I think that was on the first episode.
It was the
right?
first episode as the closer to that, and I now want a log flume in my house.
Yeah, right.
That's all I want.
But I love the idea that they have those moments where it just straight up sounds like Winnie the Pooh, and he's like, "Nighty night tunes, okay, everybody go to bed."
Kids at home, if that's what your Winnie the Pooh sounds like, I apologize.
Super sorry.
And it's probably possessed, and you should call a demonologist.
It's pretty much what's going to be an Annabelle Part 3. Get ready.
Get ready.
You wince, but it's Annabelle on spring break.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah, okay. We're all cool with this. Great.
It's like Beach Party Barbie, but Annabelle. And
Beach Party Annabelle.
Beach Party Annabelle. I would actually watch that
watch the
horror
shit
movie.
out of
Yeah,
that.
that'd be hilarious.
That'd be fun. I'm assuming it's just Spring Breakers with just a lot more dolls and murder.
Yeah, still okay with it.
Probably, yeah.
Hey, what did we watch tonight? I know you watched a crap ton of episodes tonight, but what did the both of us watch?
So we watched the first episode, as Dave has mentioned, and then we also watched the 99th episode.
Yep. I know you've got thoughts on that one, but
yeah,
anything from the premiere? What did you think were the particular strengths, and what do you think was something that maybe they shored up over the course of the next 98 episodes?
I say the biggest thing that continues to be a strength for me of this show, and a reason that I continue to relate to it, that I continually want to watch Animaniacs, is their wordplay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And it is so solid out of the gate that I don't think it's anything that they could ever like shore up or tighten up in any way. It's just something that they can consistently bring this back. And the reason that I love it, and maybe, I don't know, maybe for some reason my brain is a result of watching this as a child growing up, but there are a lot of times where I will hear somebody say something to me, and I will hear the words that they've said, and I will process it. My brain will just go, gotcha. I understood what you said in the context that you're saying it within. But there's another part of my brain that was like, wouldn't it be funny if they also said this? And I'm like, stop it. Because I will begin to mix messages in terms of what people will say. I will begin to mishear those things. And then I will just randomly laugh sometimes. And people will look at me like I'm absolutely fucking crazy. Yeah. And say, what was so funny about that? And then I'll have to explain, so part of my brain thought that I misheard you. Yeah. Wouldn't it be funny if I thought that you said this? Isn't that hilarious? And they'll look at me like, no, it's okay.
I have those same moments, and I've had to learn that that's not how normal humans function. The fact that, like, I had a friend of mine say something one time.
Dave, it is.
I had a friend of mine say something one time, and it was completely innocuous, like, do you want a piece of gum or something like that? Like, it was a question. There's no reason to get upset about that, but it triggered something in my memory that I had, like, I remember that I'd forgotten to do something, or this thing needed to be done, and oops, I missed this deadline or whatever. It just like cascaded. But in that instant to respond, I just like swore, or I just like was super upset, and she was just like, I'm sorry, but you don't have to take it. Like, it was such like the disconnect between what they ask and whatever your response is. Hopefully that happens to a lot of people, because it just makes me sound like a crazy person. But no, I think it's just the processing power. You're trying to spin a joke out. You're trying to check your reserves for like familiar phrases or punchlines or things that you could spin it into a joke to be funny. And yeah, I think a lot of it is because of shows like this, because they do such a good job. I will say the only thing in this first segment called Desanitized,
right?
I think it felt a little long and a little sometimes repetitive. And I think they've tightened that up over the course of the other episodes. And I think they've gotten a little punchier, and they've shortened up their segments that maybe weren't quite as strong, which is why I think later on we have these weird little, the Randy Beeman kid comes in for a minute, or Chicken Boo comes in for 2 minutes, just to kind of fill in those gaps rather than stretching out a joke that is a good idea. It's just better executed in a shorter time frame. So while I think all three of these segments work really well for this first episode, I think Desanitized it just felt a little long for me.
It also definitely had a moment, and I'll say that this was always fun, was that you knew sort of what the punchline of Desanitized was going to be. Yeah. You know that inevitably Dr. Scratchansniff was going to turn, and he was going to realize that
what's the setup first before you give that away?
Well, the idea is that he is going to therapy because
he, a psychiatrist, is going to therapy.
Yes. Yeah. He is going because of his interactions with Yakko, Wakko, and Dot. Right. It's been very stressful for him. He is trying to process and kind of vent to his actual therapist. And so
he used to have hair back in the day, and over the course of this process, he just literally tears it out.
Right. Yeah. And so again, this episode has been, you get that black and white real history theme song, Desanitized, which then becomes a further look back at how Yakko, Wakko, and Dot kind of terrorized him in the early days, and that he became bald
because he was tasked with the local studio lot. Like, look, we can't grab these guys, so it's your job to like get them, control them, and make them a little less crazy.
And like the crazy part about this is that you get Thaddeus Plotz, who is the CEO, the money grubbing CEO of Warner Brothers, who tells him and says, he's just like, when Scratchansniff asks, why am I doing this? He goes, because you're the therapist. You're the shrink. And that was as much of a justification as you got.
That's all I needed.
It's completely wrong, but it's hilarious to kind of see these quick interactions that they have with these characters.
Yep.
And so you see Scratch and Sniff is trying to process, internalize all of these things because the Warners have gotten out.
Yep.
And so he is very nervous and he's very scared about his continued interactions with these three. You know, at the end of this episode that he's going to turn and that the therapists that are taking notes,
who's been off camera this whole time,
yeah, who you have not seen except for like a foot or like a thigh, kind of like Dr. Claw.
Yeah, hey.
You know, hey. So you see this kind of little extension of this character, but you don't see the full on shot of them. You know, when it turns and pans to the camera that it's going to be Yakko, Wacko, and Dot.
Yeah.
Like
I thought they were all going to be like in the same suit because early on it showed like a hand.
That would have been
funny.
funny.
It would have been really funny if they were all just stuffed in a suit together.
Yeah. Shit. But you know, the fun thing is the actual camera angles in which they shot this, because in the original setup where you have Dr. Scratchansniff on the couch, he's on the left hand side and he's in sort of the background. You know, and you have the therapist that's interviewing him down in like the bottom right hand corner, like just kind of pivoted out of the view. But you have a character like Scratch and Sniff who's on the left hand side, who's showing just like cinematography wise that he has control, that he has the power, despite the fact that like he's making the confessions and that he is like very nervous about
he's laying down
this interaction. He actually has the control and the power, and the therapist that is off screen is sort of in the passive sense, is just present. And so, but then at the very end, when they give the big reveal, they switch it and they put the Warner Brothers over on the left-hand side. They actually pivot around in the room. And so now you have the Warner Brothers that are on the left-hand side, and you have Scratch and Sniff who's on the right, which now shows that there's been that transfer of power over to the Warner Brothers, and that you suddenly have Scratch and Sniff who has been regaled back to this passive sense where he's just going to take this abuse, which is crazy to see that in a fucking cartoon, in a pilot episode, as like the big punchline reveal. I would have never gotten this shot composition as a kid, but now as an adult, you know, I see this stuff and I'm always blown away by it.
Yeah, they do a good job with that stuff too, kind of like making you feel like you're in the room with them. 4 different camera angles. It's not like you're just shooting it in a space with no walls. Like they're always very kind of contained when they need to be, so that they can actually break out of that containment. What's crazy is that this thing segues directly into something called the Monkey Song, which it's crazy because it keeps all the same cast of characters that you just spent the last 8 minutes or so with, and you move right into a song that's just about, it's Dr. Otto singing about how there's these crazy monkeys that are loose on the lot, but he's talking about the Warner Brothers kids. So you're keeping that same relationship between the two groups, but you're just putting it to music, and you're also bringing in a ton of other cameos of characters that you're going to get to know over the course of the next 98 episodes. So like Buttons and Mindy show up, Flavio and Morita show up, the Goodfeathers show up, and they keep beating each other up from time to time. There's some fun stuff, like Buttons and Mindy are starting to like float away on a balloon, float up into the sky in one scene, and then a couple seconds later, like the mime shows up, and then Slappy Squirrel shows up, and she doesn't like the mime, so she shoots the balloon out of the sky and drops Buttons and Mindy on the mime. So it's like just like fun plays with all the different characters that pop in. And then even musically, you get a little taste while they have this kind of like super fun kind of Spanish flamenco themed music going on. You also get Pinky and the Brain kind of walk across in the foreground, and you get a little taste of their theme song as well, which hasn't even been revealed yet. So I thought that was super cool, the way that they all worked together and did that. Anything from the Monkey Song you want to talk about?
No, and we talked about the last
you already talked about Nighty Night Tune.
Yeah, Nighty Night Tune. And it's kind of funny because, you know, you have this large cast of characters and they've been consistently present in this first episode. Right. I mean, they could have talked about them in the theme song and then been like, yeah, we'll catch up with you guys in later episodes. Sure. But like they brought them through in all 3 segments to really kind of hammer this home. And I don't think we've ever seen in 200 episodes anything like this. No. That it's a concerted effort, consistent on like all job.
Categories. Yeah. Just to bring them through multiple times, being like, here's your introduction, here's their character building stuff, and here's the last time you'll see them for this episode, but they'll be back.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
which was cool. And it also, like, every time you watch the new episode, it was fresh because you're just like, I don't know who I'm going to see this week.
Right.
And sometimes that's good because it's like, oh man, I got to see the Warner siblings, I got to see Goodfeathers, and I got to see A Good Idea, Bad Idea, and a song from Wacko. It's like, that's a great episode. But if you're like, I got to see Buttons and Mindy, Rita and Run, and I don't really like Katie Kaboom, I got that episode. Like, it's still good and it's still funny. It's just sometimes they don't hit it with all your favorites. So they had to sort that out over the years, which
at least it's continually fresh.
Sure.
I mean, I remember probably the most painful experience that I had watching cartoons was with Ren and Stimpy.
Okay.
And that period of time early on in Nicktoons where they'd only gotten like 5 or 6 episodes,
and
you then had to, and it was just those same 5 or 6 episodes for like a year and a half before they made new ones. Oh, that was murder.
The worst was like Dragon Ball Z because they would add like one new episode into each rotation every week it came out in like Japan or once they got the dub done. But they would like, it would be like episode 38 and then it'd be like back to 1. And it's just like, fuck, I got to watch 38 episodes again just to get to 39. It's like the way that they worked it into the rotation. But
I would do it. I do it. I did it.
I done did it. All right, let's talk about this finale here because we start off with the best characters.
All right.
The Goodfeathers.
The Goodfeathers.
This was super cute because it was just like a nice kind of sweet. You're like, will they finally get along? No, it took them about 40 seconds to not get along anymore. But it was cute.
I love, and I had probably never seen Goodfellas at that point, or maybe I had
why
just
would we? Because we were like, well, at this point, probably 16,
I was like
17.
13. Yeah. Anywhere between like 13 to 16 for me, I think, but I probably would have just watched Goodfellas. So the whole Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci character dynamic that they had between one another is super fun to kind of see them continually play off of one bit from a good movie.
Right.
And it's, you just see them act that out again. Really good, consistent pattern of behavior that they have. And so in this moment, it's fun because, they're kind of looking at this horizon, it's a sunrise,
it's a nice moment, a beginning of a new day.
And they're commenting. I actually would have thought that it would have been sort of like a sunset because the show was ending.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't want to open with a sunset, I guess, because there's a lot of stuff that went on the lot during the day.
Still a positive note to go out on. So I mean, they have a lot of fun with this, and then this sort of, obviously you're gonna have Goodfeathers get into a fight. Yeah. About
what direction the breeze is coming from. Yeah.
Exactly. So from there, this just sort of goes into one of the final the final 2 bits that we have for the entire show, which is this sort of orchestral number that they have.
So this one's called the scoring session.
Exactly. So we have scoring session with a character that I don't think we had seen at any other point in this, which was Nose Nest.
Yeah, he's like a giant rhino in a suit with a bird, a little blue bird that lives in his nose. Yeah, in a nest in his nose.
So that's a choice.
But he comes in as a backup conductor and they actually call him out by name, composer and conductor Richard Stone, who was actually the composer for the series. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2001, so obviously will not be back for the new series, but was still around at the time for this episode, which is very music heavy. I'd imagine that the orchestra probably had a good time with this particular sequence because it's insane.
I hope they did because it's so much fun to watch.
It's crazy.
I mean, they set up a good comedy rule of 3. With Yakko, Wacko, and Dot entering into the actual orchestra pit.
Yeah, as the new conductor is giving out the rules of like, here are the only rules that I ask you to follow.
Don't show up late. Sorry, I'm late.
Exactly.
You're just, make sure that you bring your actual instrument and it's tuned. I'm sorry, I forgot everything that I had.
And don't interrupt me. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, exactly. So they hit a great rule of 3. They really do a great job of just fucking around with him. Yeah. But you can tell that despite giving him all this shit, that I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like in that orchestra. I mean, it's beautifully composed. They put so much stuff together. Even the moments where they're just like, make sure that everything that you have is arpeggiated against, the actual tempo that we're doing. He goes, what does that mean? Like, just play it like a cartoon.
Yeah, exactly.
got it.
And it's crazy because this whole sequence goes back and forth between like Yakko trying to take control of conducting the orchestra and the rhino guy trying to like keep everything very regimental and by the book and play the notes that are on the page. And then music starts coming in from all different places and people are getting confused about what notes are where. And there's a cue that says you're supposed to play this wrong. And Dot's like, yeah, well, you picked the right person. It's complete chaos that goes on. But at the same time, you have to keep in the back of your brain, understand that these are real musicians who are having to play this whole sequence. So whoever, I'm assuming it was Stone, whoever put all this music together for this had to build that chaos into the actual pages of music. So all of that had to mesh and sound chaotic, but also be controlled chaos at the same time. So it just seems like amazing. A love letter to the orchestra for their 5 seasons or whatever of work at this point. Because it really is like a showcase of them just getting to go crazy.
And so from there, any final questions or ideas or thoughts about this piece? Because I have a problem with what happens next.
Okay, so you're fine with scoring session?
I liked scoring session.
Scoring session was fun because it's essentially like, so in production, whether it's live action or animation or movies or whatever, you do have to add, obviously, the music after the fact. So once everything's there and everything's laid out before you, you get to add the music beats and you have a conductor who will make changes if they need to and speed up tempos or make cuts or whatever on the fly. So the fact that this was kind of a fourth wall breaking, like, well, it's all the characters of the Animaniacs showing up to make their own music for their own show. It was a really well done segment, a little different from what we're used to seeing, but a nice touch nonetheless. That's all I'll say for that.
Yeah.
Talk about Animaniacs Suite, which is going to close everything up.
It's just a clips show.
You can say just the clip show, but
I think the challenging thing is that I feel like, and hear me out on this, I feel like for a show that has had such a, I mean, we saw it in the previous bit, has had such a strong sense and element of just chaos and music and tie-ins and how this show really is able to take advantage of all these different elements and create something that's beautiful, masterful, and just fucking bananas. I wish that they would have just ended at the score.
Oh, you wanted it to end at the scoring session?
If they had ended at the scoring session, I think that it would have been great. But then we get sort of this thing, which is just like a look back, which, you know, I mean, we've all know, you know, for cartoons, like a clip show, you know, where they're just like, oh, let's gather around and talk about all these things that we've done. And, you know, somebody inevitably opens up a book of memories and then they kind of jump into some of those older bits or, you know, watching any anime series where they get about halfway through like a 24 or 26 episode season and like episode either 13, 14, or 15 is just like all the action slows down and they're just like, ooh, we should probably recap on all the crap that you've just watched instead of moving the action further. I felt like this was sort of kind of deflating for me. It wasn't bad. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed that they didn't have something that was a continuation or another song or something that was almost sort of like the goodnight tune from the first episode that we saw, where it just sort of like said goodnight and goodbye to all these characters, you know, because I feel like they could have had something that was, this show has a ton of heart. And I feel that they could have done something that was heartfelt to kind of close the series out and say goodbye.
See, I look at it from the other angle. So Stone, in the addition of putting this together for the scoring session, also arranged all the music specifically for this last segment as well. So everything that you hear, there's the theme song and then there's different classical music. There's each of the characters' themes, whether it's Yakko, Wacko, and Dot's theme, Pinky and the Brain, Mindy, Rita, as these characters show up on screen. So it's kind of like we are getting to say goodbye to the characters by watching some of our favorite moments with them. And who knows, it could have been an in-house production thing where they were just like, cast and crew, what are your favorite moments? Animators, what are your favorite moments? So the fact that it's interesting to show and see that this whole final episode is like a musical tribute. It's like It's almost like we've thanked the cast, we've thanked the writers, we've thanked the animators. Here's for the musicians. And I don't know the fact that Stone passed away only a couple of years after this. I don't know if there was something going on, so they wanted to do something in memory, or they wanted to do something to make sure he was honored, or I have no idea what. Maybe he was retiring. The fact that this whole last episode is very music and montage heavy in that last sequence, it was kind of fitting for me. I thought it was fine. I think I even watched this last episode and was kind of like emotional because I remembered watching these clips pop up from over the 5 seasons. And I will say at the end of the credits of this particular episode, it says, "A special thank you to all those who have contributed to the success of Animaniacs. Just wait until episode 100. Just wait and wait and wait." So it just seemed like one of those things. And then Yakko, Wacko, and Dot say goodbye, nurse, at the end of the whole thing.
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like you didn't need to have like a whole convoluted extra goodbye thing. To me, this was like a perfect kind of send off. They didn't need to say anything else. They kind of said it all before, and I'm fine with like a clip show ending to this kind of thing. Because honestly, I think I don't know, another unique original story. It might have been sweet to do something like Nighty Night Tune again, but I think this kind of covered all bases.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see your point. I think that for watching maybe a bunch of these episodes today and kind of getting excited about them and really kind of reliving in these moments, I don't know. I thought, fuck, I wanted something, kind of explosive and chaotic along the lines of the nature of this show itself. Like I could have seen them blowing up the water tower or the studio or just about everything that was there, in just like defiance. But the fact that they didn't, I mean, is interesting, and it's, I enjoyed it. I just think that the challenge was that because I didn't get a chance to watch, an additional 90 episodes,
it's definitely different coming
to
into
see all those
like
moments.
that.
It's hard to get hit with that. Yeah. So
what's weird though? Any final thoughts on the classic Animaniacs? Then how about this? What are you? Let's play good idea, bad idea, since I haven't actually done that yet.
Shit, let's do it.
And it's going to be a little different. I'm just going to say what they're doing, and I'm going to ask you if it's a good idea or a bad idea. So there's no skullhead involved. They're remaking this, right? They're continuing it. You think it's a good idea?
Good idea.
You don't think it's better off left as it is?
You know what? I think I love this growing up.
Yep.
And if this is something that, down the line that I can revisit, that's been updated for all the crap that we have that's in pop culture, because I think one of the successes of this is that they were able to pull in a lot of older references and actual characters. Like we had episodes with like Jerry Lewis.
Oh my God! Even that first episode had like the Hollywood Wall of Fame with like Jack Nicholson, and they had Ronald Reagan and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So we have all these people that they're pulling in, and so to kind of have those spoofs and to lampoon current pop culture, I welcome that. So good idea for me.
I'm cautiously optimistic. It's one of those things where I need to wait and see. What's the animation going to be like? Is it going to be like DuckTales, where it's modernized but not like obviously CG, where it's still like it's fun but they keep the spirit of the original?
Oh my God, I read about it today. They're going to do something similar to what they did for the reboot of the cartoon reboot, where it's live action up in Canada. Sorry,
this is an early April Fool's joke, or a late one for you guys listening to this in the middle of April.
You burnt.
I would love an all CG Animaniacs that's just like a joke episode. Like, God, this is so expensive and ugly.
Awful.
Okay, good idea, bad idea. Keep the traditional hand-drawn animation style or modernize it with computer effects.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to keep the same hand-drawn animation. I don't know that I'd want to update the look, style, and feel of this.
Do you like the current kind of DuckTales Disney XD look?
Oh fuck! I mean, I do. Yeah, I just
because you can. They could flash animate these guys. I'm torn between something like DuckTales on Disney XD and the Mickey shorts on Disney Channel. The Mickey shorts. They're just the characters look kind of weird to me. The redesigns look a little strange, and they move in a really weird way that creeps me out. So if they do something like that, I'm not going to be pleased.
I think that because these characters were created specifically for this show and are in some cases like a homage to, as we mentioned, like these older Disney characters or like Oswald the Rabbit or stuff like that, I think if they updated them a little bit, I'd be fine with it. I would definitely want them to still look relatively the same. You know, I could do a little sprucing and a little updating, sort of like how
Little nip, little tuck.
Disney XD, little nip and a little tuck. I could do a little bit of an update in terms of what we saw for DuckTales on Disney XD, but I think that that's as far as I would want it to go. I'd want it to preserve at least the same style and humor that those characters had, that same personality.
Okay, good idea, bad idea. Keeping the same cast or keeping maybe the favorites and bringing some new ones in?
I think for the success of this show and the relevancy, I think because it was mid-90s, early to mid-90s, and it was a lot of lampooning of topics and ideas that were during that time, I think I would like to see them do sort of a hybrid. I'd like them to see them bring back and retain a lot of the original voice cast, but because we had some of these supporting characters that were lesser known, like Katie Kaboom and Colin, I'd love to see them kind of branch out and possibly create some new additional supporting characters.
I think that's it for my good idea, bad idea. And I definitely want to give our listeners out there time to get their thoughts in as well.
We do this, we've done this for so many episodes, it's ridiculous. It turns out you guys, you listening, you guys have ideas and thoughts and opinions about these shows that we watch. Animaniacs, no different. So what we've actually asked you to do is we've been able to turn this over to you, yes, you, the listener, to be able to get your input, your thoughts, your ideas, and moments that you loved about this show. And so this week, Bobby Anthem's taking a break because we're turning it over to you, the listeners, for this week's Just Love It. No hate, just love it. So welcome, friends and listeners of the show, for your Love It for Animaniacs.
Hey, Sean and Dave. Just responding to your Animaniacs question. This is Scott from the 80s Auto Reversal on Twitter and with the Bonsai Retro Club podcast. So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in for Animaniacs. One thing I love about them is the adult humor that they throw in there. One of the episodes was called Polka Dottis, and Dot played Pocahontas, and they introduced John Smith. He introduced himself to her, and she said to him, "I bet you tell all the hotel clerks that." I thought that was just too funny. Another thing that I love about Animaniacs was the Pinky and the Brain spinoff. That's one of the best cartoons out there that I can remember in my life. Just cracks me up every time I watch it. All right, you guys have a great day and keep up the good work on the podcast. Congratulations on 200.
What's going on? My name is Colin Snyder. I'm from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I want to say I love Animaniacs because I love 90s witty cartoons. They are, to me, the only cartoons that matter. We need to bring that type of humor back. And to me, I could go on, but all I can say is I love that. That's my kind of humor. That's all I got to say. Thank you. Bye.
What's up, Sean and Dave? This is Charlie Viscanosh, previous guest. Most notably in the Outlaw Star episode. I feel like you guys really fucked me on the Transformers episode. Call out culture. That's what I'm doing. Anyway, talking about Animaniacs, one of my favorite shows growing up. Had a fun memory of one of the funniest things to me on Animaniacs was when they, I forget the episode, but they met somebody and they were like, "Can we call you Dadu?" And tried that at home with my own father, who I love very much and recently donated a kidney to, and he was not into that at all. Found it extremely disrespectful. Brought it up a couple times over the years, and initially he doesn't remember and then gets a little bit mad. So that's kind of fun. My other favorite thing is probably Pinky and the Brain, but that's much more of a secondary memory. And you'll probably edit this down to be like to this end part. Anyway, love you guys. Hope to be on soon. But still, calling you out for that terrible Transformers, whatever beast animatronics thing that I had to do before my love of Outlaw Star. Love you. Dave and Sean, bye.
Hey, Sean and Dave, this is EJ from the Flyover Zone, Nebraska. Just here to send some love towards Animaniacs, the most beautifully crafted cartoon variety show in existence. Little educational snuck in on us, too. Hey, thanks for all you do, guys. Happy 200 episode. Bye.
Hey guys, this is Cody Avery from Minden, Louisiana. And I have to say my favorite part of the Animaniacs was actually the secondary characters, like Pinky and the Brain, the Good Feathers, Buttons and Mindy, Chicken Boo, etc. Anyway, just wanted to leave a message. Congrats on 200 episodes, and here's to many more.
Hey guys, Jack Conley here from St. Louis, Missouri. Big fan of the podcast, and I love Animaniacs simply because Wacko is one of the greatest one of the greatest, whatever you call them, out there. I grew up watching this show when I was little, and especially it being Steven Spielberg joint, I loved everything about the references. Keep up the great stuff, just like great old Animaniacs, and yeah, enjoy.
Hey, it's 80s Music Girl from Lakewood, Washington, and why I like Animaniacs? Dude, they've got baloney in their slacks. Nothing else needs to be said. Have a great day.
We were also really fortunate enough to have some of you guys and gals tweet and email us with why you loved Animaniacs so much.
The first one we have here is from Classic George, good buddy out there on Twitter, always anxious to chat with us. George says, my favorite part of that whole show, talking about Animaniacs, was the good idea, bad idea segments. George, buddy, me and you were on the same page. Those were some of my absolute favorites of all time. Great stuff. And another tweet comes from our buddy Chappie422. He's talking about the entire Apocalypse Now episode of Animaniacs, and he says, the Doors reference is what got him, amongst others that flew over his head as a child. The entire series is full of jokes that he never grasped as a child, yet it was totally enjoyable then, and it's now an experience of discovery as I've rewatched it in my adult years. And that's something we talked about on the show too, so good job there, Chappie. We're right there with you.
We also received an email from @AliceHart1553 on Twitter. She says that she loved Animaniacs when she was younger. It was goofy and silly. She adored Dot and remembered getting the McDonald's toys. Oh, God, those Happy Meal toys.
We don't talk about that enough.
We don't. I remember being at the old Warner Brothers studio store in Cleveland, Ohio, and they had Animaniacs stuff there. She loved Slappy the Squirrel, Good Idea, Bad Idea, Buttons and the Little Girl, and the Good Feathers. She was also a big fan of Tiny Toons.
Well, you got to save that one for another episode.
Yeah, we are definitely going to save that for a future episode, so thank you. And thank you guys so much for contributing and adding all of your thoughts about Animaniacs. Obviously, as we've stated, there's no way within 99 episodes in a movie that we're going to get to every single one of the moments that you love, but we're glad to give you an opportunity to be able to talk about the things that made this such a memorable cartoon for you growing up or even now.
What's so weird, though, is how many of you wrote in saying you wanted to dip this show. Like, I did not expect that at all.
It's fucked up, gang.
Just like...
It's a real fucked up, gang.
Overwhelming amount of dipping. It's insane. You guys are crazy. Obviously, I'm going to recommend this show. Our listeners out there recommend this show. And I'm going to say, Sean?
Ooh, yeah, absolutely recommend
Yeah,
this show.
100%. One of the best ever. And I'm happy we got to talk about it on our 200th episode as a little mini break in the middle of Anime April. Ooh, good idea, bad idea. An Animaniacs.
A bad idea.
That's a very bad idea. But I hope they take some fun chances with the new version. Maybe play with a couple different animation styles. Maybe play with a couple different like genre attempts. They could really skewer the whole superhero shtick right now if they wanted to. They got plenty of stuff to work with.
Jeez.
So we'll see. We'll see what they come up with. See what the creative team has in store. We've got a
Yeah.
couple of years yet, so hang in there, guys. Get caught up on all the old episodes. And speaking of getting caught up on old episodes, you've now got 200 of ours to go through as well. So be like our buddy William and go back through that back catalog from the beginning because he's the best, and you should be the best as well.
Shout out to our other listener, Lily, who has been going through, and she has been jumping into a lot of episodes that we have. So always glad to have new listeners interact with us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you guys for continuing to listen. You guys are the best.
And thank you, Sean, for joining me for these 200 episodes.
Aww.
I sent you a candygram, and I don't know if it got there yet. No, I did not.
Okay.
What I'm looking forward to as milestones is episode 365. Because in 365, then you can listen to one episode every day, unless it's a leap year, and then we're screwed, and have a new episode every day. So I'm looking forward to 365. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking for episode, I think, just 300.
Okay.
Because I want
So
there
we
to
can
be
get
a
like
cartoon.
shirtless.
I want there to be a cartoon version of the live action 300.
By the time we get to the next 100 episodes, you hope there will be one.
Fingers crossed, gang.
I mean, Zack
That's what
Snyder's
I'm
not
looking
doing
for.
much else these days.
I mean, I'm still hoping for it. I think what I would really like is Adi Shankar to do it, because I think it'd be just fucking brutal.
It probably would be pretty brutal. I'll talk to him and see if he wants to do that. If he wants to buy the rights from Snyder and Frank Miller.
I mean, if they could just do something like that, I think it'd be really wildly entertaining. That, and I'm waiting for episode 420. I don't know.
God, are we even going to be around by then? Or are there even going to be cartoons? Everybody's going to be in the Oasis.
Yeah, right.
It's not even going to matter.
No, actually, I'm excited about episode 420. Because I want it to just be a strictly dedicated to cartoon drugs episode.
Oh man, we've got a ways to go before we get there.
I feel like in addition to everything that we've done on the show, as much time and energy as you and I have put into creating that checklist for like what makes a perfect theme song, I think additionally what is going to be the next step in the future is what makes a perfect cartoon drug episode. That's what I want my doctoral thesis for all of this to ultimately be.
Well, you've got 200 episodes to work on that, I guess. So take notes.
Gonna get ready. Can't wait.
In the meantime, buddy, other than working on your doctoral thesis from San Francisco City College, what else are you working on out there?
Guys, as always, I do live improv comedy with a group that is called Nox. That's NOX ! We perform in Washington, D.C. As a part of Washington Improv Theater, you can find tickets and times witdc.org. And I'm always on Instagram and Twitter at Sean Paul Ellis.
Thank you so much. A 200th special. Sean using the whole word for once.
Did it.
You can find me on the twerts at Dr. Claw.
You fuck.
You can also find me on Collider.com, Nerdist.com, and DaveTrumbore.com. If you want to find out more about this little show right here, we'd love it if you head to our one-stop shop, Patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can find out all sorts of information there and see how you can actually help the show itself. Seashells by the seashore.
I thought you almost said shit.
And you can shit yourself by heading to Patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons. We really would appreciate it. You can also keep up with us, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. That's our handy little website. Follow along on Twitter at MorningTunes. Take a look at Sean's handiwork on the grams. Keep that conversation going on Facebook. And listen to our free audio podcast each and every week through YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. As always, you can reach out to us, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. You've heard this 200 times now, but thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Oh, thank you, Dave, for doing this.
I said I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I said I'll see
Next
you
fucking
next time.
time.
Next, see you in episode
201.
201.
Dalmatians.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.